Hey guys, today I want to show you how you can use Docker for your Python application. I show you all the essential stuff to get started, and then we take a look at two different projects and how we can Dockerize them. The first is a simple script that needs additional dependencies, and the second project is a web application with FastAPI. This second example also shows how to Dockerize a virtual environment. So this example is one of the most common use cases for Docker, and if you follow me here, then you should be able to apply this for all your own projects. Alright, so first of all, what is Docker? In simple words, Docker is a tool that lets you put your application into a container. These containers allow you to package up the application with all of the parts it needs. So all the libraries and all other dependencies, and then we can deploy it as one package. So if another one is using this, then he or she doesn't have to worry about installing all the correct dependencies first. So we can start using this right away. Okay, so now let's start Dockerizing our Python applications. First of all, we have to install Docker, of course. So for this, you can go to the official homepage, docker.com, and then click on Get Started. And then I recommend to download and install Docker Desktop. So this gives you both the command line interface and also a useful desktop application. So choose your operating system and download this and follow the installation guides. And once you have installed this, you can verify this in your terminal by typing in docker-v. This should tell you the current Docker version. So yeah, here we can see that I already have this on my machine. Alright, so this is working, and here I'm using Visual Studio Code as my editor, and if you're using the same, then I also recommend to install the Docker extension. So you can go to the command palette, type in install extensions, and then here search for Docker and use the official Docker extension from Microsoft. So I already installed this, and this gives you nice features, for example, for debugging or for auto-completion. So go ahead and do this. And now we can start Dockerizing our first Python script. So for the first example, I want to have a single Python script, main.py. And for this example, I'm gonna use the code from another tutorial that I already have here on my channel. So this is the IMDb movie scraping tutorial, where I scrape the IMDb charts and then randomly suggest a movie. So this uses the requests library and Beautiful Soup. And if you're interested in that, then go ahead and check that tutorial out as well. So I will put the link in the description. So now I simply copy and paste this. And here I'm dealing with a user input as well. So for now I comment this out, but I will show you how we can use this in a second as well. So let's comment this out. So now we can start Dockerizing this, and the first thing we need is a Docker file. So we have to differentiate between three different things. The first one is the Docker file, then we have the Docker image, and then we have a Docker container. So a Docker file is a blueprint for building images. An image is a template for running containers, and the container is then the actual running process where we have our package project. So the first thing we have to do is to define our Docker file. And by the way, we can use comments in here like this. And the first thing we have to do is specify a base image. So here we can say from, and then use Python and then colon, and we can specify the version 3.8. So this is pulling this image from Docker Hub, which already has Python installed. So we have all the things we need to have Python in our container. And now the next thing we want to do, we want to add this main.py file into our container. So we do this by saying add, and then the source is main.py, and the destination is just a dot, so in the current directory in our container. Now that we have that, we have to install the dependencies. So as I said, we are using requests and beautiful soup. So we have to install them with pip, and we can do this by saying run and then simply the command pip install requests and also beautiful soup. And I guess the pip package is called beautiful soup 4. So now that we have that, and then the last thing we have to do is specify the entry command when we start our container. And here we want to say Python, and then as second parameter, here we say : and then main.py. So this is simply running Python main.py in our container terminal. So now we have all for our Docker file, and now we have to create our Docker image. So we do this with the command docker build -t for tag, and then the name of the image. So I call this Python imdb and hit enter. And I also have to specify the location. So here I simply use a dot again. And now it's building the image, and as you can see, this is executing these steps in this order, so the order is important. So it's pulling the Python image, then it's adding main.py, then it's installing the modules, and then we are done. And then when we start our container, then it's running this file. And then we start our container by saying docker run and then the name of the image Python imdb. And then we see that our container is starting and the script is running, and we get a random movie suggestion, and then our container comes to the end, so it's shutting down again. So now we can try this again, and then we should get another random suggestion. All right, so this is working. And now, as I said, here I commented out this part where we used the user input. So now let me put that in again. So now we have the complete script and save this. And then we have to build our Docker image again. So again, we run this command. And now if we start our container with this docker run command like this, then it will crash. So yeah, so we see we get this EOF error, and this is because if we use a user input, then we have to use additional arguments for the docker run command. So we have to say docker run -t and -i. So the I stands for interactive mode, and the T will give us a pseudo terminal where we can type in the user input. So now if we run it like this, then this should work again. All right, so now this is working. So we get a movie suggestion, and then it asks us if we want to see another movie. If I say yes, then this should give me another one, and yes, and yes. So this is working. And then if I say no, then this should end the script and also ends the container. All right, so this is working, and this is the first example. Now let's have a look at a more advanced tutorial. So for the second example, I want to create a web application with the FastAPI framework. But this basically works the same for every other web framework that you use. So we start by creating a virtual environment, then install the dependencies, and then write our application and then dockerize it. So let's do that. All right, so here I'm in a new empty directory, and the first thing I want to do is create a virtual environment. So I do this by saying python3 -m venv venv. This command might be slightly different on Windows. And now we created it, and then we have to activate it by saying .venv/bin/activate. And again, this command might be slightly different on Windows. And now we are inside this virtual environment. So now we install the dependencies, in this case for FastAPI. So we say pip install FastAPI. And we also need a web server, so we say pip install uvicorn and hit enter. So now we have that, and now let's create our app. So let's create another directory in here, and then the file main.py in this directory. And now let's grab the example code from the website. So this one here, and paste it in here. So this syntax is very similar to the Flask syntax. So we create an app, and then we define our functions where we define the routes. So we have one base route and then one route at /item/item ID. So now first of all, let's test our app locally. So we do this with this command, or we can also do it in a second way. So let me show you this as well. So we can import the uvicorn library, and then we say if name equals main, and then we say uvicorn dot run, and then we want to run our app. So this is, I think, the same or very similar with Flask. With Flask, you can also start it from the terminal, or you can start it with flask.run inside here, or app.run, I guess it's with Flask. So yeah, so let's do it like this, and then of course we have to run the script. So now we say let's go into the app directory, and then let's say python main.py. And it says that our server is up and running. So we can go to localhost 8000, and we see we get the hello world response. So this is working. And if we go to /items/item ID, then we get the second response that we specified. So yeah, so this is working. So let's shut down this server again, and let's go back to the root directory from this project, and let me clear this. So now we want to dockerize this. So the first thing we want to do is to save all the dependencies in a requirements.txt file. So for this we say pip freeze and then the greater sign, and then requirements.txt. So this writes all the dependencies that we just installed into this file. So we see we have FastAPI, we have Unicorn, and some other dependencies. So the next thing we want to do is, again, we want to create our Docker file, and this should be in the root directory of our project. And here again, we start by specifying a base image. So here again, we say Python and version 3.8. And now I want to do something new. So I want to organize the folders in the container in a slightly better way. So I create a working directory with this command. And then let's call this directory in this container FastAPI-app. And this will also automatically go into this directory. So now this is our starting point. And now we want to copy the requirements.txt into this working directory. So we simply have to say :. Then we have to install the dependencies, and we do this again with the run command. And this time we say pip install and then -r requirements.txt. Then the next thing we want to do is to copy this whole app folder with the main.py file. So let's do this by saying copy. And we want to copy from ./app. So this is the folder here on our machine. And then we specify the folder name inside the container. So let's also call this app. So now we have that. And now we also have to specify the entry point for our container. So again, here we use the command Python. And then we want to run the main.py file. So this is in the ./app folder and then /main.py. So now this is our Docker file. And then again, we have to build our image. So we say docker build -t, and then let's call this Python -FastAPI. And again, I forgot the dot here, so again with the dot at the end for the current location. So now this is running and executing all those steps. All right, so this worked. So now we have a Docker container with all those dependencies installed. So now we can run this again with the command docker run, and the name was Python FastAPI. All right, so now this is saying that our Uvicorn server is running at localhost 8000, but now this does not work. So if we go to this route again and then hit enter, then we see this site cannot be reached. So for this, we have to do some changes. So first of all, so let's stop the container again. So first of all, what we have to do is when we run our container, we have to map the port by saying -p, and then we have to map the port from the outside to the port from the container. So like this. But before we do this, we also have to specify the host and the port in our app. So we can do this here in this Uvicorn run command. And here we can put in the port argument, port equals 8000. So this is the default anyway. But what is also very important is the host. So we have to say host equals, and then here as a string 0.0.0.0. This is very important. So this is the same when we are using this, or for example, when we're using Flask, we always have to specify this host address. So now that we have that, what we have to do is, again, we have to build our image. So again, let's run the docker build command. And then let's run our container again with this -port argument. And we map 8000 to 8000. So now if we run this, then it should work. So now again, let's go to this localhost 8000 address and hit enter. And now we see this is working, and we can also go to items route and then use an item ID. So this is working again, and we see here we get the information in this terminal. So yeah, now our web application is running as a Docker container. So now, for example, we can go to the Docker dashboard, and then here we see that this is the current container. So here we can inspect the logs or delete this or shut it down and restart this. So yeah, the Docker desktop application is very helpful. And what's also very nice is that we can get a terminal inside this Docker container if we click on here. So now we have a terminal. And then I want to demonstrate this folder structure again. So this is actually my default terminal. So let me go back to my other terminal, and then I want to show you how we can do this with the command. So first of all, we can say docker ps. This will list all the running containers. So we see that right now this container is running, and this is the container ID. So we can grab this command, docker exec -it, and then this docker container ID, and paste this in here. And then we have to say /bin/ash, and now we get the shell inside this container by using the command line. So now, for example, if we say ls, then we see we are currently in our working directory, so inside this directory. So if we go one folder up by saying cd::, and again say ls, then we see all of the folders, so this Linux file structure in our container. And then here we see this new folder that we created with this command, work directory FastAPI. So that's why I did this. So now again, if we go into this FastAPI-app directory, this is our starting point. And then again, we have this app directory, and here we have the main.py file that we copied with this command. So yeah, this might be helpful sometimes to get a command line in your terminal. And yeah, this is all I wanted to show you for now. I hope you learned a lot here. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, then please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. And then I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.